Hello and welcome. Lanita Ellis, the Scrappy Grandma here. This is our Torah Portion, our weekly Bible study where we go through the first 5 books of the Bible. And this is actually a special recording. It's one of the fall feast recordings. It's the Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkot, when Yahuah comes down and tabernacles amongst us. So I wanted to read a little bit out of this book that I got called the Feast of Adonai. Why Christians should look at the biblical feasts. It's a very informative book. There's some stuff in here that I'm not. When it refers to the Tanakh, that's, to me, it's been added to, and the word's been added to, and I like. It's interesting to read things from the Tanakh in that. Or actually, the Tanakh, now that I understand, wait a minute. So I'm going to back up. The Tanakh is actually, if I'm understanding this correctly, if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me. But the Tanakh, now that I think about it, it's an acronym, I think, for the Torah, the prophets, and the books of wisdom. So, but there's some extra things in here from rabbis and sages and things like that I don't take as gospel, but I think it's fascinating for historical, if we understand, if we can step out of our Western mindset and step into a Hebrew mindset, because that's who the scriptures were written to, the Hebrews, meaning the ones who crossed over, and we are to the Israelites. So let me read a little bit of this and give us an idea. And then I've got the Torah portions for Sukkot are Leviticus 22, 26 through 23:44, Zechariah 14, 1 through 21, and Luke 2, 1 through 20. So I'm going to give a little overview here from the book about the Feast of Tabernacles. So the 15th day of the 7th month shall be a Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto Yahuah. Leviticus 23:34. The Feast of Tabernacle, or Sukkot, is Yahuah's 7th festival on Tishri 15 through 21. It's called the season of our joy. And boy, we are really looking forward to it and getting excited and starting to prepare. Just days after the sobering fast of Yom Kippur, people joyously celebrate Yahuah's love and provision at Sukkot. People must rejoice at Sukkot according to Leviticus 23:40 and Deuteronomy 16:14. Today, thousands of people from all over the world celebrate this fall feast in Jerusalem. Sukkot means booths. In an annual festival to remind Israel that they lived in booths for 40 years in the scorching desert, where Yahuah provided a cloud cover, water, and manna. Sukkot teaches that he is the true provider and shelter. This is the last fall feast, a prophetically unfulfilled feast. Yahuah will fulfill this 7th feast at the end of days when he tabernacles on earth with his people, Revelation 21:3. Sukkot is a holiday of sevens, the number of completion. It is the 7th feast and occurs in the 7th month of the year. It is a 7-day outdoor celebration in booths. It is connected to the 7th day of creation, which is a Sabbath rest. In the future, it marks the start of the 7th millennial. It is connected to the 7 spirits of Yahuah, the spirit of reverence. 7 bulls were sacrificed on the 7th day, the greatest day of the feast. 70 bulls were sacrificed to atone for the 70 nations in Genesis 10. So Yahuah had Israel sacrifice bulls for the pagan nations, the 70 nations. The total number of sacrifices, 70 bulls, 98 lambs, 14 rams, 7 goats, and 336 tenths of an ephah of fine flour were all divisible by the number 7. In biblical days, shepherds erected booths for livestock. In Genesis 33:17, soldiers erected booths for resting places on the battlefield in 2 Samuel 11:11. Farmers erected booths in Isaiah 4:6 to give field hands shelter from the sun and a place to sleep at night. And during Sukkot, men and women, children, servants, and foreigners camped in booths or temporary shelters for 7 days to demonstrate their dependence on Yahuah, who is a permanent shelter. One day, all will celebrate. Then the survivors of all the nations that have attacked Jerusalem will go up year after year to worship the King, the Yahuah Almighty, and to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. So that is in the future. Everybody will go up to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles to Jerusalem. Sukkot is connected to Passover in the same branch of the menorah. So you can kind of see here with the biblical feasts, Passover's on the first one and Sukkot's on the last one. And so they're connected, the first and the last. See page 4. Well, let's see what page 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it doesn't have a picture. Okay. So then it says here, on Passover, the kingdom of Yahuah advances through the death of Jesus, or Yeshua, his Hebrew name. On Sukkot, the kingdom of God is fully established on earth. As the seventh feast, Sukkot is connected to the seventh spirit of Yahuah, the spirit of reverence. Cain and Abel brought sacrificial offerings in Genesis 4:3. In the course of time, the phrase Meketz Yamin, this phrase refers to Sukkot. Cain's offering was rejected when he failed to show reverence at Sukkot. And that's something I've always, oh, wow. So this was the Feast of Sukkot when they brought their offerings. And Cain forgot. He failed to show reverence. Because I always wondered, why did he, I mean, I think we all wonder why was Cain's offering rejected. In the Messianic age, the spirit of reverence transforms nations during Sukkot. Zechariah 14:16, which is what we'll be reading. Sukkot is a festival filled with many smaller celebrations. The first day of Sukkot is a Sabbath and a national holiday in Israel. The seventh day is Hoshana Rabbah, or the day of Great Hosanna, the last and greatest day when people pray for Messiah's salvation. John 7:37. The eighth day is Shemini Atzerat, or the eighth day of assembly. It is a Sabbath and a national holiday in Israel. Ninth day is Simchat Torah. Okay, we were trying to figure out when the end of when the 54th, which is the last Torah portion, is read, is in that Simchat Torah, when it's the last portion. So here, the ninth day is Simchat Torah, or the rejoicing in Torah, a 500-year-old tradition. Hol HaMoed are the intermediate days of this holiday. It is rumored that America's Thanksgiving sprang from Sukkot. So when they came over and settled in America, they were actually celebrating Sukkot. So, but this ninth day, this is great because I wasn't sure when to read the 54th portion, and now we know. Yay! It's been interesting learning the calendar, and unlearning all of my pagan American Western ways, and now learning the ancient path, the Hebrew ways, the ways of Adonai, the ways of our Lord, our God. Names for the Feast of Tabernacles. Additional names for the Feast of Tabernacles are Feast of Booths, or Feasts of Dwelling, because people live in booths. Feast of Nations, because all nations will celebrate, Zechariah 14:16 through 19. Ziman Simchatinum, or Our Season of Rejoicing. Woohoo! Feast of the Clouds, because Yahuah's clouds sheltered Israel in the wilderness. It's something I just read in here, and you think about it, they were wandering all those decades in the hot desert, and he covered them with a cloud of protection. So, Hol Ha Moed are the intermediate days of this holiday week. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Come back here. Feast of the Clouds, because Yahuwah's cloud sheltered Israel in the wilderness. Isn't that beautiful? Final ingathering for the ingathering of fall crops. And Hag Ha'asif, a feast of the ingathering, a final harvest. So let's begin with Leviticus 22:26 through 23:44. 22:26. Here we go. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, when a bull or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall be 7 days with its mother, and from the 8th day and thereafter it is acceptable as an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. But do not slay a cow or a sheep and its young on the same day. And that is, it's mercy and compassion to, the Torah is all about preservation of life. And so you don't want to, sorry, I just lost a sticker on my, you don't want to slaughter both the mother and the baby on the same day for the preservation of life, because that's how things are wiped out. Mm-hmm. So, okay. And when you slaughter a slaughtering of thanksgiving to Yahuwah, slaughter it for your acceptance. It is eaten that same day. Leave none of it till morning. I am Yahuwah. And you shall guard my commandments and do them. I am Yahuwah. I love those. I need to count up sometime how many times it says to guard the commandments. So, and do not profane my set apart name, and I shall be set apart among the children of Israel. I am Yahuwah who set you apart, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim to be your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the appointed times of Yahuwah, which you are to proclaim as a set apart gathering, my appointed times, his appointed times. These are not the appointed times of the Jews. These are his appointed times. He sets, I love this analogy that I had heard. We have a fiance. We're betrothed, not married yet. We're betrothed. And our fiance says, hey, I've set apart these special days as appointments to meet with you intimately, to get to know one another before the wedding feast. Will you please meet with me? How can we not? I mean, he set apart these special days. And that's exactly what these days are for, is to get to know him and his ways, their practice, so that when we are with him after the wedding feast and we are his pure and spotless bride, that we behave as such, his pure and spotless bride, and that we already know him because we've spent time getting to know him on his appointed days. So, okay, to me, that's something that's so, so, so sweet and special. So my appointed times are these. And I love this. The Sabbath is the first appointed time. 6 days work is done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of rest, a set apart gathering. You do no work. It is a Sabbath to Yahuwah, not for the Jews. It's a Sabbath to Yahuwah in all your dwellings. These are the appointed times of Yahuwah, set apart gatherings, which you are to proclaim at their appointed times. So, all those years when we were celebrating Christmas and Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day and Easter and all of those, none of those are in the Bible, and none of them, let's be real, very, very, we didn't make them about him. When we celebrated those celebrations, they were all about us. They weren't about him. I mean, we could say, Jesus is the reason for the season, but in reality, At least I didn't. So in the first new moon, on the 14th day of the new moon, between the evenings, is the Pesach, Passover, to Yahuah. And on the 15th day of this new moon is the festival of Matzot, unleavened bread, to Yahuah. 7 days you eat unleavened bread. On the first day, you have a set-apart gathering, and you do no servile work. Servile, I'll have to look that word up, servile. But I think it's very much like it sounds, service work. And you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuah for 7 days. On the 7th day is a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, When you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of first fruits to your harvest to the priests. And he shall wave the sheaf before Yahuah for your acceptance. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest waves it. So the day after the Sabbath is first fruits, when the priest waves the sheaf before Yahuah. And I had read in one of the commentaries that how they knew their first fruits is they would tie a ribbon around it, the first that would ripen, or the first that would grow. Like how I think about it is my elderberry bushes out there in the spring when they start to flower. I will tie a string around them. Same with my pomegranate tree, or tomato, squash, whatever, your very first one, you tie a ribbon around it, then that's your first fruit, and that's to be offered up. So the first fruits of your harvest to the priest, and he shall wave the sheaf before Yahuah for your acceptance. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the feast waves it. And on that day, when you wave the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb, a year old, a perfect one, as an ascending offering to Yahuah, and its grain offering 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to Yahuah, a sweet fragrance, and its drink offering 1/4 of a hin of wine. And you do not eat bread or roasted grain or fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim, a law forever throughout your generations in all of your dwellings, forever. And from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaves of the wave offering, you shall count for yourselves 7 complete Sabbaths. So you have Passover, and then you have unleavened bread for 7 days. And somewhere in there is going to be your Sabbath, your weekly Sabbath. And then the day after, so Sunday after the weekly Sabbath, that's if I'm understanding this correctly, in the unleavened bread, that's when you do the first fruits and the wave offering, and then you start counting 7 weeks, and then that takes you to Shavuot. Until the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, you count 50 days. Okay, so you can count 7 Sabbaths, so 7 weeks, or you can count 50 days. Then you shall bring a new grain offering to Yahuah. Bring from your dwellings for a wave offering 2 loaves of bread and 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour. They are baked with leaven, first fruits of Yahuah. And besides the bread, you shall bring 7 lambs, a year old, perfect ones, and 1 young bull, 2 rams. They are an ascending offering to Yahuah with their grain offering and their drink offering, an offering made by fire for a sweet fragrance to Yahuah. And you shall offer 1 male goat as a sin offering and 2 male lambs, a year old, as a slaughter of peace offerings. And the priest shall wave them beside the bread of the first fruits as a wave offering before Yahuah, beside the 2 lambs. They are set apart to Yahuah for the priests. And on this same day, you shall proclaim a set-apart gathering for yourselves. You do no servile work on it, a law forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. And when you reap the harvest of your land, do not completely. So the first is the spring first fruits, which was the barley, over in Israel. And then 50 days later, getting in the summer is the wheat harvest. So where did And when you reap the harvest of your land, do not completely reap the corners of your field. When you reap, and do not gather any gleanings from your harvest, leave them for the poor and for the sojourner. I am Yahuah your Elohim. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th new moon, on the first day of the new moon, you have a rest, a remembrance of Teruah, repentance, a set apart gathering, Yom Teruah, Feast of Trumpets. You do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuah. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, On the 10th day of the 7th new moon is Yom HaKippurim, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. It shall be a set apart gathering for you, and you shall afflict your beings, and shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuah. And you do no work on that same day, for it is Yom Kippurim, to make atonement for you before Yahuah your Elohim. For any being who is not afflicted on that same day, he shall be cut off from his people. And any being who does any work on that same day, that being I shall destroy from the midst of his people. He takes it pretty serious here. You do no work, a law forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. That pretty much covers everything. It is a Sabbath of rest to you, and you shall afflict your beings on the 9th day of the new moon. At evening from evening, you observe your Sabbath. So that's coming up. Well, by the time you hear this, it will have passed. But for me, because it's still a week away, it's Saturday. So because I'm doing this, recording this ahead of time so that I can upload it in time. Let's see. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, On the 15th day of the 7th new moon is the festival of Sukkot, for 7 days to Yahuah. On the first day is a set apart gathering, you do no servile work. For 7 days you bring an offering made by fire to Yahuah, and on the 8th day there shall be a set apart gathering for you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuah. It is a closing festival. You do no servile work. These are the appointed times of Yahuah, which you proclaim as set apart gatherings to bring an offering made by fire to Yahuah, an ascending offering and a grain offering, and a slaughtering and a drink offering as commanded for every day. Besides the Sabbath of Yahuah, and besides your gifts, and besides all the vows, and besides all your voluntary offerings which you give to Yahuah. On the 15th day of the 7th new moon, when you gather in the fruit of the land, celebrate the festival of Yahuah for 7 days. On the first day is a rest, and on the 8th day is a rest. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of the good trees, branches of palm trees, twigs of leafy trees, and willows of the stream, and shall rejoice before Yahuah your Elohim for 7 days. Dance around with the bounty that he has given you. And you shall celebrate it as a festival to Yahuah for 7 days in the year, a law forever in your generations. Celebrate it in the 7th new moon. Dwell in booths for 7 days. All who are native born in Israel dwell in booths, so that your generations know. Here's the whole purpose. So your generations know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahuah your Elohim. Thus did Moshe speak of the appointed times of Yahuah to the children of Israel. Okay, now Zechariah 14, 1 through 21. See, a day shall come for Yahuah, and your spoil shall be divided in your midst, and I shall gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem, and the city shall be taken, the houses plundered, and the women ravished. Half of the city shall go into exile, but the remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city. And Yahuah shall go forth, and he shall fight against those nations, as he fights in the day of battle. And in that day his feet shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from the east to the west, a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And you shall flee to the valley of my mountain, for the valley of the mountain reaches to Atzal, And you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, sovereign of Judah. And Yahuah my Elohim shall come, all the set apart ones with you. In that day it shall be, there is no light, it is dark. And it shall be one day which is known to Yahuah, neither day nor night, but at evening time there shall be light. And in that day it shall be that living waters flow from Jerusalem, half of them toward the eastern sea and half of them towards the western sea, in summer as well as in winter. And Yahuah shall be sovereign over all the earth. In that day there shall be one Yahuah, and his name one. All of the land shall be changed into a desert plain from Geba to Ramon, south of Jerusalem, and she shall be raised up and inhabited in her place from the Benjamin gate to the place of the first gate and the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananel to the winepress of the sovereign. And they shall dwell in her, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. And this is the plague. So this is, future time. This is what we are practicing for and waiting for. And this is the plague with which Yahuah plagues all of the people who fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall decay while they stand on their feet, and their eyes decay in their sockets, and their tongues decay in their mouth. And it shall be in that day that a great confusion from Yahuah is among them, and every one of them shall seize the hand of his neighbor, and his hand raise up against his neighbor's hand. And Yehudah shall fight at Jerusalem as well, and the wealth of all the nations round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver and garments in great quantities. So also is the plague on the house and the mule and the camel and the donkey and all the cattle that are in those camps as this plague. And it shall be that all who are left from all the nations which came up against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year and bow themselves to the sovereign Yahuah of hosts, and to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. And it shall be that if any one of the clans of the earth does not come up to Jerusalem, if they don't come up to bow himself to the sovereign Yahuah of hosts, on them there will be no rain. So the nations that don't go up for Sukkot to Jerusalem, he will stop up the rain, and there'll be no rain on their land. And if the clan of Mitzrayim does not come up and enter in, then there is no rain. On them is the plague with which Yahuah plagues the nations who do not come to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. And this is a really good question that people have brought up. Why would Yahuah have them celebrate these feasts? And then the Christian church says that when Jesus came, all the feasts were done away with. And then they started celebrating Christmas and Easter, which have absolutely, completely nothing to do with it. I mean, he didn't have anybody. And then, so they did away with the feasts, and then he's going to start them up again. That makes no sense, because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's not going to have us do it and then stop doing it and then start doing it again. That just makes no sense. So let's see here. And this is the punishment of Mitzrayim and the punishment of all the nations that do not come up to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. In that day, set apart to Yahuah shall be engraved on the bells of the horses, and the pots of the house of Yahuah shall be like the bulls before the slaughter place. And every pot in Jerusalem and Yehudah shall be set apart to Yahuah of hosts, and all those who slaughter shall come and take them and cook in them. And there shall no longer be a merchant in the house of Yahuah of hosts in that day. Up until recently, I only thought that, like end times prophecies were like Daniel and Revelation. But now I'm learning that there's so much end time prophecy in the prophets. So, and I'm going to be actually starting, when we start the new Torah portion cycle, that I'm also going to start reading the additional books, starting in Joshua and going in. And my goal, Yah willing, is to eventually record the entire Bible. That's my goal. Okay, so last is Luke 2, 1 through 20. And it came to be in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus. Now, this is after Yeshua, because it's New Testament, so Luke. For all the world, or not after Yeshua, but Yeshua's time. A decree went out from Caesar Augustus for all the world to be registered. This took place as a first registration while Quirinius was governing Syria. And all were going to be registered, each one to his own city. And Joseph, also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth to Judah, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house of the lineage of David, to be registered with Miriam, who was engaged to him, being pregnant. And it came to be that while they were there, the days were filled for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him up and laid him down in a feeding trough, because there was no room for them in a lodging place. And in the same country, there were shepherds living out in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And look, a messenger of Yahuah, small m messenger, so an angel, stood before them, and the esteem of Yahuah shone around them, and they were greatly afraid. And the messenger said to them, "Do not be afraid, for look, I bring to you good news of great joy, which shall be to all the people. Because there was born to you today in the city of David a Savior, who is Messiah, the Master. And this is a sign to you: you shall find a baby wrapped up, lying in a feeding trough." And suddenly there was a messenger there with the messenger, a crowd of heavenly hosts, praising Elohim, saying, "Esteem to Elohim in the highest, and on earth peace among men with whom he is pleased." And it came to be, when the messengers had gone away from them into the heaven, that the shepherds said to each other, "Indeed, let us go to Bethlehem, and see this matter that has taken place, which the Master has made known to us." And they came in haste and found Miriam and Joseph and the baby lying in a feeding trough. And having seen, they made known the matter which was spoken to them concerning the child. And all those who heard marveled at what the shepherd said to them. But Miriam kept all of these matters, considered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, boasting and praising Elohim for all they had heard and seen, as it was spoken to them. Exciting stuff. It's so beautiful when the word comes alive and it all starts to click and make sense. And it's just so cool. So, Father Yah, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to share your word. I pray for everyone who's listening to this, that you will bless them and give them a hunger and a thirst and a passion for your word. Cause them to so crave being in your word that it's all they think about. Cause them to meditate on your words day and night, and help us all to dive into a deeper covenant walk with you. Help us to cleanse ourselves, purify ourselves, and so that we can present ourselves as that pure and spotless bride. And as we are in now the time of your fall feast, Father, help us to learn more about how you set them up so that we can honor you in observing them the way that you designed. All praise, honor, and glory to you in Yahushua's mighty name. Amen. Be blessed. Thank you for joining me. If you feel led, share these recordings with your friends and family, and let me know that you're watching. Sometimes I feel like I'm speaking just to a camera, to myself. And I really appreciate when you all engage and actually let me know that there are other people on the other side of this. So share your thoughts. If you ever catch me in misspeaking something, please correct me. I am not a teacher. I am a student like y'all. Man, I just spoke Southern, and I've never lived in the South. But I'm just a student. line. I'm just a student like all of you, and don't trust anything I share with you. Be a Berean and test everything. The Bereans tested everything Paul said against the word, and it all had to line up, and it did. So be a Berean and test everything. Everything I say, everything you hear, test it out in the word. Search it out in the word. It is, what does it say? It's a king's honor to conceal a matter, and it is an honor for us to search it out. Paraphrasing. So be blessed, and my next recording will be 54th, the last. I don't have it right here with me, but it's the last Torah portion, when Moshe goes up and dies, and everything is right before Joshua leads the nation of Israel into the promised land. So I'm so excited. And then we start all over again. Let me know if you're reading this with me. If we do have, and there'll be links, we do have a women's Bible study, and we'll be starting the cycle over again on the 20, I think it's like the 24th. We'll have a call on Thursday. We have our calls noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, and we just get on a call. You don't even have to share. You don't even have to show your face. It's on Discord, so you can have a little picture of you up there, and you don't even have to, but you can listen and learn or share. And it's really beautiful when we all come together and share what the Father's showing us through His Word. So I invite you to join us. Like I said, we're all getting ready to start. So we'll be starting right after Sukkot. Be blessed. Bye.